Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today. This presentation will discuss NCMS Squared Talent Solutions Validity Assessment of Just Another Police Department's Police Officer Selection System, building on the job analysis we completed earlier this year. NCMS Squared's approach is grounded in industrial organizational psychology, and our years of experience with public sector and law enforcement clients gives us strong insight into the challenges facing JAPD. Our mission is to help organizations build high performing workforces through tools and strategies they can trust, and I think you'll find that we delivered on that goal today. Validity is critical to any good selection system. It ensures that hiring tools are accurate in their decision making, which, in practical terms, means that JAPD can confidently hire officers who are more capable and less likely to turn over, reducing operational risk and amplifying financial gains over time. Validation also supports fair hiring practices, which has clear reputational and legal benefits. NCMS Squared looked at the validity, utility, and fairness implications of 4 selection tools: a general mental ability test, a job knowledge test, a structured interview, and an inbox test. The GMA test measures cognitive ability. Structured interviews can capture a wide range of applicant qualities, and the knowledge test assesses familiarity with law enforcement procedures, policies, and priorities. The inbox test is an individual work sample that offers direct observation of job relevant behavior in a standardized situation. I'll now pass it over to Chuck to discuss our criterion related validity findings.
Thank you, Madeline. When we start to design performance prediction methods, we want to make sure we are using the right tools for the job. We wouldn't test a baker's ability to assemble cabinets. Instead, we would want to know if they are skilled in areas such as using a mixer. Checking the content validity allows us to determine if the items we are recommending to predict performance are the correct items. Once we determine the right tools, we need to know how well each tool relates to performance. For that, we use correlation. Think of correlation like an umbrella. Umbrellas don't cause dryness, but they are strongly related to keeping people dry in the rain. Test scores don't cause job performance, but those that do well on the test are more likely to perform better on the job. In our analysis, we took those tools Madeline discussed and ran a correlation test. For correlation numbers, we look for something to be between 0 to 1, with 1 being a perfect correlation. In the social sciences, anything above 0.4 is considered good, and even if something is below, when combined with other predictors, we would look for these scores to increase. Once we determine how well the tools predict performance, we then run models to see how they do in different combinations. The top table shows the predictive power of each individual predictor. As you can see, GMA test explains 23.7%, the highest of all predictors. The p-value tells if the relationship between the predictor and performance is statistically significant. Adjusted R is how much of the job performance being measured is explained by that predictor. Variance in performance is the percentage of job performance being predicted by that tool. The bottom table shows the combination of predictors we tested. As you can see, the addition of the inbox test caused a 1.2% increase in the predictive validity over the GMA-only model, which was statistically significant. The addition of the interview and knowledge test was not significant. The importance of having multiple model options is critical. While one model may excel in predicting performance, another might mitigate adverse impact, or another may achieve the best use of resources. By comparing various models, organizations can achieve a balance between business value, risk, and legal or ethical considerations. For example, a big SUV, or all 4 predictors together, might sound like a good idea because it performs well, can carry a lot, and is safer. However, the trade-off is the size is intimidating and hard to maneuver. It costs more to maintain and operate. These models allow you to make an informed decision when choosing the tool in your hiring process. Now that we have a general idea of how research drove our recommendation tools and models, our teammate Sydney will go over what this all means in practical terms. Over to you, Sydney.
Thank you, Chuck. Using the 4 predictors Madeline discussed, we evaluate a new hiring system. Not just how well it predicts performance, but also whether it's fair and legally defensible. To do that, we used 3 main methods. First, we looked at utility. That simply means, does this test help us hire better people compared to hiring at random? Our utility analysis linked a variety of models' validity to their practical outcomes using the Taylor-Russell framework, which predicts model success using our 3 inputs: selection rate, SR, base rate, BR, and the model's composite validity, R. The following table provides Taylor-Russell scenario results for each model at each of the three selection rates and validities, with the base rate being the percentage of employees that are considered successful currently in the department using the most recent performance appraisal averages from across the department. 40% was identified as the current base rate, BR equals 0.40. This value was utilized across all scenarios to most accurately model these selection systems at JAPD. To help interpret the table, consider a selection model with an expected model success rate of 75%. This represents a 35% gain in predicted accuracy over the current success rate in the department, 40%. The model uses a top down selection process starting at 10%, then 50%, and finally 90% selection rates. According to Taylor Russell logic, selection tools yield the largest incremental value when the base rate is moderate. The three predictor model with a 10% selection rate has the highest gain. The model has an 82.5% expected success rate, which is a 42.5% gain. The lowest model gains are the 3 and 4 predictor models at the 90% selection rate, both with an expected performance of approximately 43.8%, which is only a gain of 3.8% over the current satisfactory performance rate of 40%. Overall, results show that at lower selection ratios, expected success rates increase substantially, demonstrating the value of using valid predictors when the organization is highly selective. At higher selection ratios, the incremental gain is much smaller, as most applicants are hired regardless of predictor performance. A decision tree flowchart further illustrates how our predictors sort applicants into performance groups. This tree includes yes and no questions used to sort applicants into small groups of similar performance levels, and can be used by JAPD to better understand the utility of each predictor. Now, on to Shaunte to discuss fairness, bias, and legal considerations.
Thanks, Sydney. Today, I'll be summarizing key findings on JAPD's selection models with a focus on fairness, bias, and legal considerations. Our analysis highlights how different selection rates and predictor combinations impact both predictive validity and the risk of adverse impact. First, it's critical to remember that selection systems must not only deliver predictive accuracy, but also comply with legal standards, such as the Uniform Guidelines on Employee Selection Procedures, Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, and the Americans with Disabilities Act. Legal defensibility depends on using reliable, validated, and job related measures based on a documented job analysis. To evaluate fairness, we rely on several concepts. Top down selection, where applicants are ranked by predictor scores and the top candidates are hired. Differential validity, which checks if predictors work equally well across demographic groups. And adverse impact, assessed using the fourth fifths rule, which flags when a protected group is hired at less than 80% of the rate of the majority group. Our results show that at low 10% and moderate 50% selection ratios, adverse impact occurred across all predictor models, with Black applicants being selected at far below 80% of the white applicant rate. At high selection ratios, such as 90%, however, adverse impact disappeared in every model. The trade off is that higher ratios reduce the utility of predictors, since fewer applicants are screened out. When comparing validity coefficients between groups, most differences were not statistically significant, but there were some exceptions. In the 3 predictor and 4 predictor models at the 50% selection rate, statistically significant differential validity was present. This means that those tools predicted job performance more accurately for white applicants than for Black applicants in those scenarios. To summarize, white applicants generally showed higher composite validities, though most differences were not significant. Adverse impact was consistent at low and moderate selection rates, but not at high ones. And adding more predictors did not consistently raise validity for both groups, and sometimes increased fairness concerns. Now, on to Nora.
Thank you, Shaunte. Now let's move into our recommendation. We recommend a 2 predictor model using a general mental ability test and an inbox test. This approach balances validity, fairness, and feasibility while measuring all critical KSAOs. The inbox test mirrors real job tasks, has high face validity, and reduces subgroup differences. Unit weighting gives both predictors equal influence, reducing adverse impact. The model produces a 1.2% increase in predictive validity. In practice, this means more top performers hired, fewer poor hires, and long-term benefits for both financial savings and community safety. Now let's focus on implementation. The model is only effective if it is applied fairly, consistently, and with a smart use of resources. JAPD should prioritize 4 areas. Reducing bias by using diverse assessors, clarifying that GMA is not the only factor, and applying banding to lessen reliance on high selection ratios for adverse impact mitigation. Standardization through clear scoring rubrics tied to KSAOs, consistent assessor training, and strong documentation. Resource optimization by designing a concise digital inbox test and supporting it with automation to reduce scoring burden. Additionally, monitoring through annual audits, revalidation every few years, and a full validation study every 5 years. Even small improvements in predictive power, like the 1.2% increase in this model, translate into more top performers hired, fewer costly underperformers, and a substantial long-term financial and performance benefit. It has been a pleasure to collaborate with the JAPD team. We value the opportunity to support your department in advancing evidence-based hiring and promoting public safety. Thank you.